Welcome to Let's Talk UCA, the podcast where we connect, collaborate, and communicate with chiropractors from around the globe. I'm Holly, and in this episode, I'm joined by Melissa Sandford as we speak with Ali Young. Ali shares her journey into chiropractic, reflecting on her early experiences and challenges of balancing practice with motherhood. We discuss the importance of supporting female chiropractors, addressing burnout through connection and self-care, and the significance of paediatric training. Ali also envisions a future where chiropractic plays a vital role in healthcare and reflects on her legacy and the influence of notable figures in her life. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk UCA. Ali, let's jump straight in. First things first, how are you? Where are you? And how did you find your way into chiropractic?
Oh, they're good questions. So I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking. I am currently in Perth, Western Australia. So I might talk too fast. If you guys think I'm going too fast for people, please tell me because I am definitely a fast talker. And I got into chiro as a 15-year-old. I grew up in a very small country town in Victoria, Australia, and we had 1,500 people. We had my dad saw the chiro for back pain, and he was pretty cool, our chiro. He played, AFL footy, and he was fun. And I had this foot pain. I played a lot of tennis, and no one could, the GP, the only person we saw, couldn't tell mum and dad what it was. So mum was like, I'll take her to the chiro with you. And they assessed me and took an x-ray of my spine that showed a pretty big scoliosis, which floored my mum because she's a radiographer. So she thought I should have been able to tell this. And I always said, you don't have x-ray vision, you just take the x-rays, so it's okay. And I started getting adjusted straight away. And within 3 adjustments, I had 0 foot pain, and they didn't touch my feet. They only adjusted my spine. And so for me, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is absolutely amazing. And it threw me down the rabbit hole, and I've just wanted to do this and done this ever since. It's been great.
Amazing. So where did you study, Ali?
At RMIT in Melbourne. So I graduated in 2002 and moved straight to Perth and was here for, I think, 10 years, set up a practice called Nirvana with my best mate, and then got married and moved to Malaysia, where I didn't practice because I was pregnant and had a child, then moved to Central Queensland, where I did a little at-home practice. So I've had very varying iterations of practice life and mum life. So by then I had a toddler and was pregnant with my second, practiced from home. And then 15 weeks after my second was born, opened an actual chiro practice with doors and windows and a shop front. And being in a relatively small country town in central Queensland, which was 6 hours north of Brisbane on the coast. So Great Barrier Reef, humidity, all the things. Worked there 2 days a week, sort of school hours-ish, pumping between adjustments, no CA, returning phone calls with the breast pump in the background. And then it just built over time, got a staff member relatively quickly, and was there for 7-8 years. And then had a break in the middle, went to Korea for 2 years where, again, I couldn't practice because I wasn't a medical doctor. And to be an expat chiro then in Korea, I had to be an MD as well. Then back to Queensland again. And then finally, roundabout, back to Perth, where I am an associate in the practice that I started 23 years ago, which is really nice.
Wow. So I think you've ticked just about every chiropractic box there. Opened a practice with your mate, right? Which I tell everyone not to do.
And I still, to this day, best decision ever. And I still work with her. She owns it, and she comes and she's like, you want to buy back in? I'm like, hell no. I'm just going to come to work and turn up and then leave again. It's brilliant.
Yeah, amazing. So that kind of leads me into probably one of the questions I was going to ask you, but I think I'll ask it now. Is I want you to tell me about the Disruption Society, because I can see your life, you've done that, you've done that, you've done that. Like it's almost overwhelming thinking, how is that possible? Particularly when you have a family, making all of those moves even without considering owning a business is big, right? So
Yeah.
making those moves and owning a business and, you know, those periods of not being able to adjust must have been in some ways like a nice break.
It wasn't bad. When we moved to Malaysia, I definitely was ready. I'd been in really relatively high volume practice for 10 years, and I was like, yeah, I could have a break and just see what this mum life thing is about. So that was when I first became a mum, and I actually got bored pretty rapidly, and started doing some coaching on how you run a successful pediatric practice online back in 2012 when it wasn't really a thing. And then, yeah, moving through those, I went through burnout because I did do all the things and, you know, thought I knew better about myself, and then got to a point where I couldn't leave my bed for 2 days and went, this isn't normal, and got, you know, hardcore burnout. So then I had to change how things were. And my whole thing was, if that could happen to me, who's someone who's supposed to know better, and, you know, we work in this beautiful space of innate intelligence, how are we supporting our female chiros to not get into that space still? Because you see it every day. You guys would speak to people every single day who have that same story. They tick all the boxes, they do all the things, then they get to that point of, I can't do this anymore. And so disruption society really is the end point in that. I've come through the cycles and set my life up now in a way that really suits me, which isn't the right way for everybody. But how can we support each other to make the right choices and hopefully avoid getting to the bottom and maybe stop midline somewhere and make it successful? Yeah.
I think it's really important that we can teach those that are just starting, like not wait till they need to disrupt, right? Disrupt now.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Get those young people in. I've got a few beautiful women who are just recently graduated. So they don't have kids, they don't have families, but they see it happen in our generation, and they're like, I don't want to end up like that. Like, you guys are successful, but the way you got the success looks different to maybe how they want to have it. And so, like you said, it's changing from the beginning, which is really great.
So if there was something you could have done differently, what would it have been?
Definitely asking for help a bit earlier, and not trying to do everything by myself. I think because when I hit burnout, I was in a regional town. So I was the only female chiro. We had, you know, people coming from 400 kilometers away, which for you guys sounds like, oh my gosh, I don't know how far in miles that is, 250 miles or something. My maths is bad. Don't hold me to that. But there was, I think that asking for help sooner and learning the beauty and the power of scaffolding your life so that you can actually nearly put it into like little segments or ponds so that you're not trying to mix everything in together as well. So for me, that looked like when I was at home, I wanted to be present with my kids. I wanted to be present with my family, but I did feel like I was doing all of the work, then rushing home and sort of doing dinner and bedtime, and then sitting on the couch and writing all my notes, and then going to bed, and then not sleeping well because I hadn't had downtime. And so it just, that cycle continued through. Yeah.
It's so important to close that computer, even if there's more to do, right?
Absolutely. I was just having that conversation with someone today. I was like, you need a second phone. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you can't field phone calls, again, someone regional, about booking appointments at 7 o'clock at night from people. Like, that's your family time. You need 2 phone lines. That mobile gets put away, turned off, and you turn it back on when you go to the practice. And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. So going back a little more to your chiropractic journey, is there a case that challenged your assumptions and expanded your understanding of what chiropractic care is truly capable of?
Yep, definitely. I had a miracle today, actually, but back in the beginnings of time, back in my first year in practice in 2003, I had this family that got sent in to me, and they were walking through the local shopping centre, and their son was 8 at the time, and he had an acquired brain injury from meningitis. and he was having a moment in the shopping centre, and one of my patients walked up to him and said, I think you need to take him to see Dr. Ali. She's just across there. And so in they come, and I had never worked with someone with this amount of change, let alone a child with this amount of change. And it really made me see the huge changes just with the adjustment could make to his life. He began to have some words, he began to calm down, he wasn't as angry all the time. And that's what spurred me to do my paediatric masters, because I was like, well, I'm sure there's more that I could do for this to help with that chiropractic story. And Cam to this day is still getting adjusted where he lives now. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it really changed what I thought chiropractic could do for people. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. How important do you think it is for people to do further training in paediatrics?
Well, based on what people learn in Australian colleges here, the baseline is pretty slim pickings. They don't get taught a great deal. I don't think everyone that needs to wants to see kids needs to have a super, a master's or one of the diplomat programs or anything like that. But I definitely think a broadening of knowledge, some work with people who know what they're doing around force application and making sure you've got a good solid concept of red flags and things like that is really important, because it just sets you up to be a beautiful generalist, I think, is the best way of looking at it. Someone who can see the whole family but also go, oh, this is a bit tricky, so what can I do about this? Yeah.
What do you think are the best resources around for that? This is a question I get asked all the time, by the way, which is why I'm asking you. Like, where do I go to learn more about babies, especially for new grads who really aren't learning it in school?
Yeah, so I don't know. In Australia, we have some pretty cool. There used to be Dr. Neil Davies, who I did my NIP adjusting with and my masters, and he doesn't teach that anymore. But I believe there's people in the UK that do teach NIP adjusting, and I think that is a beautiful skill set when working with the paediatric population. I also think any of the courses around primitive reflexes and the neurodevelopment and how we can identify that is really, really good too. So in Australia, that would be the Inspiral courses.
Yes.
Myself and my two best mates who have, one has a neurodevelopment one has a diplomat. I've got a master's. We're running pediatric adjusting courses this year because, like you said, no one's teaching it. And that's broken into 6 things: a first visit, primitive reflexes, cranials, that kind of stuff. So you just have to sort of keep your ear to the ground and see what's coming locally as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you very much for jumping on board and expanding the resources out there, because they're definitely needed for sure.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit more to this burnout, because I think, we definitely sort of see it a lot in the female space. Maybe that's just because we're women and we all talk about it, but I definitely see it in the male space too.
Yes.
This idea of burnout, and I think it is different. It's coming from a different place, but in your experience, do you think burnout is more about workload or about losing connection to the meaning and purpose of practice? Or do you think it's both?
I was going to say, I think it's a combination of both, depending on a few factors. Some people, like I've known males and females who have had burnout, are definitely a workload issue. Like, it's super, super busy practice, and they so strongly believe in chiropractic that they can't see that they're stepping outside possibly that chiropractic principle by giving so much of themselves to other people that they're not looking after themselves. And I think that's something that isn't spoken about really openly, because we're drawn to this profession with a sense of service and wanting to help each other and help our communities, and we get good at it and people like what we do, and so then more people come, and then the cycle continues and we get busier and busier and busier. So I think there's definitely that workload component. And then we often, and this is obviously a gross generalization, but stats do show it up, that females in practice are often going home and running families as well. So there's that workload on top of it. And then there is that loss of connection. And I think that solo practitioners have a big chance of having that level of burnout happening, when you're not connecting with other people and having those deep, warm hugs and those conversations and that leveling up of your knowledge to look after yourself and your people better. That lack of connection can really flow through there too. Yeah.
Do you think burnout can occur from a different space when you're not succeeding in practice?
Yeah. And you're striving all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And that, I think, could be maybe improved upon with more connection.
Yeah. You mean more connection, like with other chiropractors,
Colleagues.
or with?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So with colleagues, so more connection with other colleagues about how you are able to communicate, how you can show up as your best self, what your best self looks and feels like. I think when you get into that striving mode and you're always trying hard, you probably lose a bit of that sense of self. So it could be a factor too.
Yeah, I think so. And then there's an element of shame or admitting, oh my God, I'm not doing so well. I'm a really good chiropractor. You know, you're a good chiropractor. You know, you can adjust. Like, why is my practice not as busy as my friend Jane's, who's only 10 miles down the road? Like, what's the magic sauce there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is no magic sauce. Like, we can't just tell everyone to do the same thing. But I think when you're congruent with your universal intelligence and you're channeling that, it's going to help, right? And sometimes we have to step outside of ourselves to get that too. And that comes often from connection or doing things or challenging yourself in a different way so that you can sort of get back to what you need. And I think having the white space in your life is really vital for that too. So when we're in strive mode, we're filling everything up all the time to do all of the things. So we really want to just take that moment and sort of let's see what comes in. Yeah.
So what one piece of advice would you give to somebody who feels like they've lost their way, their purpose?
Have a chat with your best mate, walk, a sauna, a wine, whatever your choice of connection might be. And hopefully a chiro best mate so that you can really have that. Put yourself back on a schedule of care and start getting adjusted again and feel the miracles within your body and treat yourself how you'd want to treat your most favorite patient. So look at yourself and go, hey, what do we need from me? Is it X, Y, and Z? And maybe start treating yourself with the dignity and respect as that you would afford other people. I think that's a nice way to get back to it. And sometimes it's a big cry. Sometimes it's a holiday. Sometimes it's an immersion in cold water. I'm not sure for the individual, but it's, doing something different, because if we do the same things over and over again, we're just going to continue to get the same results. So we do have to change it up sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting point that you brought up there about having a program of care, because it is strangely very common in our profession. And I was guilty of this a little bit myself, where even though I'm not a chiropractor, I've been involved in the profession for a long time, worked in a practice for many, many years. I don't go into the practice very much anymore, and we don't have a bench up at home all the time, married to a chiropractor. Yep. So you think I'd have full-blown access to chiropractic, right? Yep. Which I do. But I did definitely go through a period not that long ago where I was missing my adjustments. I was too busy, or I had to go and pick up the girls. Oh, I missed this little window of opportunity to go into the practice, or this, that, and the other. And so grabbing an adjustment at a seminar, then, when you really sit down and think about it, that's not care, right?
No, that's band-aiding things. Yeah, absolutely. And you can definitely see the busy factor impacting on that. We actually had a conversation in practice with all of our team this week and said, we haven't done the CEs on each other. We need to get this done, put each other back on our schedules of care, stick to our appointment schedule, and make sure that we're getting the care that supports our neurology for where we are in our season of life as well. I send my husband to one of my friends for adjustments. I'm like, off you go and book. And he books his own visits and he has to stick to his schedule of care. And it makes a huge difference in how his body responds to. I think it is really a missing link for a lot of us.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. My husband had a disc injury a couple of years ago, and it was in a pretty bad way. And he ended up going to same thing to a local chiropractor, 10 minutes drive away, and examination, X-rays, full program of care. And he went there for about a year because he's an associate, and the practice environment was almost too
close.
It was too close, and it healed and turned out well. But I think it was that decision to, I'm going to take care of myself rather than grabbing an adjustment. I think it's really,
I'm just
really,
going to grab it at the end of a shift, or I'm just going to grab it just before I work because I went to the gym and it's a bit sore this morning. And if patients came in and said that to us, we'd be going, well, before you get sore, how about we schedule this adjustment in? But we don't afford ourselves that. So,
And I'm sure it's just not in chiropractic, but it seems to me that there's a lot of people who are in healthcare that aren't really healthy. Right?
100%. And they're too busy looking after everyone else to look after themselves. It's that service mindset, which is a beautiful part of what we do, but it definitely can drive us down into that deep hole.
Yeah. So I think, looking after number one is definitely good advice there.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit to practice. Most chiropractors already, they know a lot. But why does the knowledge not always translate into stronger practices? What do you think's that missing link there?
Certainty in their own knowledge. I think that, there's a lot of chiropractors that know a lot of things, but they're consistently second guessing themselves about, do I actually know enough? How do I show this to people? I've put a lot of people on a gratitude journey this year because I think that we have to acknowledge our miracles and write them down and really think about it. Because if we reflect back on how things are looking, how they're functioning, and give ourselves the grace that we are doing a really great job, that just breeds that cycle of positivity. And I also think communication is a huge part of this because maybe you know that you know, but have you told other people that you know? And that's the other part of it, is that we have to have a certainty, confidence and belief in ourselves and in our own functionality as a chiropractor to be able to go and talk to people about the chiropractic message. I think in Australia we had, a lot of issues around the paediatric care and our regulation body. And it stopped a lot of chiropractors who had big family practices speaking in a way that perhaps they normally would because they're worried about repercussions. So it dulls down the messaging that you're often giving. And I think that we have to regain our power around that and make sure that we're letting people know about how wonderful this profession is. Yeah.
Do you think that fear of, pardon me, the regulator, if you're in a country that's regulated, we are.
Yeah.
Do you think that fear around regulation is what holds some people back from communicating what they truly believe? And 100%. So they almost try and make it more sciencey or technical because it might be a bit more accepted rather than truly speaking from what they believe?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think that on social media, there's a really fine line for people, and a lot of people are super nervous about posting anything on social media because they don't want to be seen as saying the wrong thing or overstepping the mark and stuff like that. So that's a big part of it. And I think we need to go back to having the honest conversations with people in practice as well and not being so scared of things there. Which is easier said than done, right? It's easy for us to sit here and go, oh, no, you just speak your truth. But sometimes you've got to really own your truth again to speak it. And that's where the miracles comes into. Yeah.
Amazing. So what role do you believe that chiropractic can play in our healthcare system?
Oh, it's so huge.
Looking into a crystal ball.
I think that it could be the most beneficial first step as a primary health provider for people. Our knowledge base is underestimated, and what we know and what we do. And I think that in the ever speeding up society that we have, the role of chiropractic to address nervous system regulation, to address brain and body connection, and to give people the optimal fighting chance to survive in this crazy world needs to be really shown out there. Yeah. It's a huge opportunity. It's a tricky one to navigate because you guys are like us, like you're never going to be part of the NHS, and you wouldn't want to be, and we're never going to be part of the public health system, but we can definitely be more than what we are, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Ali, we're sort of coming to the end of our time here, but we've got a couple of last questions. We want to dive more into a bit about you. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I would love my legacy to be providing a platform for female chiropractors who are in Australia now over 50% of the chiropractic population to feel strong within themselves, to practice how sits within their integrity and value systems and show up as chiropractors and still live a life that they love outside of chiropractic as well.
Oh, amazing. What a beautiful legacy. You might be interested to know that the intake at Scotland College this year, I might get these numbers wrong, but there are mostly females and 2 guys.
Oh, so isn't that brilliant?
Like, I think it's 17, but let's just say there's 13 girls and 2 boys. So
yeah. That's amazing.
I find that interesting. And in a way, great, that we have loads more women coming to chiropractic. One of my worries is that, because we mostly, and I don't want to generalize, but mostly women will go on to have a family. And then your time in practice, reduces. So, if we're looking 30 years ahead and we've got 70% female chiropractors, like, how does that look for our profession? It's an interesting thing running around in my head. I'd like to know your thoughts around that.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this actually, and I think that we're going to end up more in a group practice model where we get women that have the same philosophical values and practice in similar models actually come together and run a practice that works within their family life but is profitable and also supports them with, a team of admin queens that can do all of the things that they need to do as well, so that they can show up and do what works, and then they can leave and go home. We've got a few people over here doing that, which I think is just brilliant, where it's groups of mum chiros that come together and they just love what they do, but they don't want to do it full time. So they just support each other to do it. And I really think that is the best way forward. I'd love to see our regulating body sort of somehow make that easier for people to do, like not the Chiro Board of Australia, but the Chiro Association. And that's why I chair Women in Chiro here, because I really want to sort of set that up for people so that they can feel that freedom of going to work and not the heaviness of trying to work enough to make ends meet if they can work in that kind of space. We see it in other practices, like you think of specialist, like orthopedic clinics. They'll be in there for 1 day a week and then they're in surgery 1 day a week and then they have 3 days a week off. So why can't we do the same thing? I mean, there's no reason that we can't set things up that way. Yeah.
It's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that style of practice, where women are able to support each other. Amazing. So one of our last questions, Holly is going to ask this one because it's also my favourite, but it's definitely her favourite.
Which one's that? Is this the dinner for five?
Yeah, dinner.
Dinner for five. Okay, fantastic. Yes, this is something I like to ask our podcast guests because the answers are always so different. But if you were to have dinner with 4 guests, dead or alive, which 4 people would you choose and why?
Oh, good golly. Well, I'd definitely choose Mabel Palmer because I would love to pick her brain and have those deep conversations with her. And I would also really like to have a conversation and a dinner with Marie Curie, which sounds very, very weird, but her brain and the way it scientifically worked, I would love to be able to go, okay, so now you're here in this generation and we've got all of this knowledge and we know the power of the human body. What do you think now? I'd like to really challenge her on those sorts of things. 2 more, hey?
Anyone you want.
Anyone I want? You sure about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would really, really like to get Fatboy Slim because I feel like he's had a really interesting journey, and I think that his shift and change in his own health journey over the last 10, 15 years, when he's very outwardly all about being sober and those conversations, I think that would be really interesting. But also I want to talk to him about early days of house music because that is my little quiet thing on the side that I very, very much like. And probably I'd get my grandma Dolly back and have her there because she's just full of conversation and she'll just keep pouring everyone brandies. And so we all need one of those at the table.
Well, I hope she doesn't pour Fatboy Slim a brandy.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? So he could have one of those alcohol-free brandies, right?
Yeah. Well, Fatboy Slim lives at the end of my road, so
stop it.
Yeah, next time you not exactly on my road, you have to cross a road, and he's right on the seafront. But at the end of the school year, he plays a DJ set just down at the end of our road for the locals, you know, and the teenagers come and it's quite fun. Never announces it; he just like turns up there.
He just turns up and does it. Yeah. I think that I really just. I don't know. I've been diving into retrospective 1980s and 90s music culture, and I feel like he's lived a big life, but also is really aware of his impact on society and how he can make positive change through music. And I think that's like us. Like we can make positive change through putting hands on people's bodies, and it's just a matter of, well, how can we connect that and clarify things for everyone? Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think he's certainly a great role model in our community, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And
awesome.
Holes?
Yeah, one of the questions I also like to ask at the end of every podcast is if you could finish this sentence for me. Chiropractic is
the best thing that we discovered and were able to share with the world. We just need to be louder and share it with more people. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time this morning. This morning for us, this evening for you. And
I noticed
really,
you're drinking coffee and I'm drinking soda water, so I was like, we're definitely at different ends of the day.
Definitely different ends of the day. And it's half-term holidays here, so my children are tiptoeing around the kitchen trying not to make a noise. So,
my daughter just got driven back home from volleyball, so there we go. Definitely
amazing.
at different times. Yeah.
But I really appreciate everything you're doing, especially for the female space. It is important. It's also important we look after our guys, and I know that there's we've had a very male dominated profession for a very long time. And that's neither a good or a bad thing. It just is.
It just is.
But it just is, because I've obviously married to one of them, so I think they're great people. But it is really really nice.
Great people too. I love them. But
I think sometimes when we start talking about women in chiropractic, I think there are another half here that sort of feel like, oh, well, what about us? But
yes.
I think every conversation the conversation we've had this morning, all of those points, they're applicable to both camps. We just need to approach it differently because we're different people,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really true that, the burnout story, like you said, it's not just female chiropractors that go through burnout at all. And I speak from my journey of burnout, but I could speak from my husband's journey as well. And so it's just a matter of, bringing it all together and how we can support each other to be our best selves so that we can be our best selves in practice and align spines and get their innate intelligence firing again and see what the world does. It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. So how can people get in touch with you, Ali?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Insta at Dr. Ali Young. Pretty exciting name there. I'm Ali, A-L-I. And I do have a female membership called the Disruption Society, which you spoke about before, Melissa, which I just absolutely love working in that space. We hang out together 3 times a month and we have guest experts that share their wisdom, and we talk about practice life and work life and all of those things. That's probably the best way, is to jump on and say hi.
Brilliant.
Drop into my DMs. Is that what we say?
Slide
If
into your
I
DMs.
say that, they'd be like, vomit in your mouth.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode. We hope to speak to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Let's Talk UCA. Your feedback will help us deliver new topics and guests for future episodes. The bios of the interviewee and co-host, along with our contact links, are included in the show notes below. Thank you for listening.